The Flash Season 2, Episode 21, The Runaway Dinosaur. Now, coming off of the last episode, this one was, I would like to think it was fairly anticipated for a lot of people. I mean, it was like we have two people, at least from the comic books, who are meant to be speedsters. So we have both Wally and Jesse who get knocked unconscious. We have, Barry just thrown off. He's, torn apart, turned to energy. He's inside the Speed Force. And we have to figure out what the heck's going to happen. We have a reanimated villain in Girder coming back to life in this episode. And it was kind of okay. I mean, honestly, this was kind of like one of those episodes where you think it might be super epic. Like, I figured, honestly, I knew this because of the trailer. I was like, I'm not going to enjoy this episode. Oops. Didn't know that would be on. Didn't know I had my volume up. But I knew that from the trailer. I was like, I'm not going to enjoy this episode as much as I would want to, because I could tell from the trailer it was going to focus so much on Barry just being outside of, space and time and just being inside the Speed Force that it wouldn't really appeal to me too much. And as I was watching, I was like, I hope I'm not judging this super hard, because I was expecting it to be like something crazy amazing, because we went off of, Barry got torn apart and two characters who we know are meant to be speedsters got hit with basically his energy. And as I was watching, I was like, this is kind of an okay episode. It was not really super amazing or anything like that. It wasn't super entertaining. Some stuff was cool. I mean, we had a lot of funny. They had like one really funny reference that I loved, because the guy who plays Girder, which a ton of people know this who watched The Flash already, but the guy who played Girder actually played a zombie in the show iZombie, which is also on the CW, which recently finished its second season. But he was in that. He was basically in the whole second season. And so it was funny to actually make that reference at one point where Cisco turns around, he's like, did iZombie follow you, or something like that, because it's the same actor. So a lot of people were making those jokes when the trailer first came out, so I was really happy when they made that joke. Actually, within the episode, I thought it was really funny. I was like, that's really cool that they acknowledge that, and that makes perfect sense that they would. But him as a villain, I thought was okay. The solution I thought was fairly interesting. The way they had to use like the magnets within the MRI to kind of affect his abilities. I wasn't 100% sure. I mean, I guess because it was two magnets, it was supposed to be like it's pulling him apart, so he couldn't. Like, it hurt him so bad that it weakened him, and that's kind of why his powers kind of drained away, because he realized he was being like torn apart almost. But other than that, it was like, not too much really happened in this episode. We had Wally woke up and he was fine, so I thought they were kind of going to twist things around a little, because Jesse was unconscious, and it was like, oh, that's what happened with Barry. So when they did that, I was like, okay, that's interesting. So they're not going to do Wally first, they're probably going to do Jesse first as the second speedster, at least following Barry. And of course, that didn't happen in this episode, so they probably are going to go the route I figured they would, which was they would get their powers later on. I thought that they would do one currently, and I guess that was a bit too optimistic to think that they would do even one of them, with full-on power so early on. But, I mean, she was unconscious. She was knocked unconscious. I love that they did the scene early on with Joe, and it was like, okay, I'm going to have to do this the old-fashioned way. When he was talking about, like, if things start feeling weird with your body and stuff, which was a funny scene. And he's like, I'm going to have to do this old-fashioned when he drops the coffee. I thought that was actually really smart. But, Wally, he woke right up and he was normal and everything was fine. So, seemingly nothing's going on with him. And my guess was he was going to be the one who'd get powers first, mostly because it was, he's Kid Flash, he's meant to be. So I think everyone assumed that it's like, okay, he's going to get the powers first, because they wouldn't do both of them unless they both gave up their powers again to bring Barry back. And, that didn't seem to happen. Obviously it didn't happen. But I thought that was how that was going to play out. So he didn't get any powers, but they did knock Jessie out. And I was like, all right, she's going to have to get her powers then, because she's been knocked unconscious. And maybe, and I think this is how they're going to play it, if Wally doesn't end up having, abilities first, then it will be Jessie. And it makes sense because she was knocked out just like Barry was. But Barry woke her up before the 8 months were over. So I think that might be how they play it, where it's like, oh, he touched her hand, and obviously the lightning, based on how it happened, I would say he took more of his power back, so it made, what was happening to her, lessened by like 90%. So she was already unconscious. It was basically building up within her body, just like Barry's. But because he touched her and he basically took the rest of his speed back, that's why she woke up. Because it was like, boom, a little bit of lightning. She was up like it was nothing. I'm like, okay, he took the power that was building up inside of her and keeping her kind of in the coma. He took that back to his own body. And it's still within her as well as Wally. It's probably, like I said, because she was actually unconscious. They might do it where she becomes Kid Flash before Wally, if they even bother doing the nicknames and Kid Flash and all that. But she'll probably develop her powers first because she was actually unconscious and Wally took it back. But they could also do it in reverse where, or where Barry took his powers back, not Wally. But they could do it in reverse where Wally does end up having powers first because even though he wasn't knocked out, Barry didn't come by and grab his hand and give he didn't take all of his speed back or anything, or at least most of it. So in that regard, they could do it either way, really. But you know, that was kind of the outside sort of thing. And then within the Speed Force, we have Barry, and he's going through. He's seeing the important people in his life. He sees Joe, he sees Iris, and of course he sees his dad, and then his mother at the end. And of course that's where the Runaway Dinosaur thing comes into play. And I thought it was okay. Honestly, it was like, all right, Barry's going through. The Speed Force is being really weird. It's like, it's this one thing, but it says we all the time. So it's kind of multiple entities. And they didn't really go the route I thought they were going to, which was like, the Speed Force was kind of like death itself, in a sense, because it was like, once the world is like, it was something like superheated and all, stuff like that will still be there as well. But it was just the Speed Force. And it didn't really relate to specific speedsters or anything like that. Like, oh, this is here's the Reverse Flash and stuff like that, and or even a part of it, like personality wise, certain aspects start to come out of maybe Zoom and Reverse Flash, but it was it was kind of so-so. In all honesty, it was fairly dramatic, and Barry's trying to figure out like how do I catch this random thing, which I thought was going to be Zoom. I thought it was supposed to be like him reaching his goal and like kind of catching what was too fast for him, which technically he did because he still didn't have powers until the end. But he's going through and it's like he has to realize himself. He has to realize what he needs to be. So it was kind of okay. It went. It kind of went through and ultimately got his powers back, which was good. Um, and it was kind of okay. They had a good scene again. Him crying with his mother and stuff like that. So that still had its emotional aspect to it, but just overall as an episode, it did kind of disappoint me. That's why I feel like I'm doing it so harshly because we had such a crazy epic ending, and it's not even the fact that it was resolved because I figured because they're showing us it's Barry in the Speed Force, he's gonna be healed by the end of this episode. I knew that already, but it was just like such a non-resolution. It seemed it was like, well, obviously Barry's gonna come back to life. We knew that, but it wasn't even crazy where it was like they did have to like Barry came back with like a partial powers or something, and they did have to take it from you did have to get the rest from Wally and Jesse. So it was just kind of like it was an okay episode. I still feel they still didn't do what I thought they were gonna do, and it's starting to make me a little annoyed with Wally not knowing who Barry is as the Flash because I don't know if they cut it out or what the deal is, but they have it in the episode. When they wake up Wally and Jesse, Wally gets right up, and the first thing, like what I believe is like the first or second thing Iris says is like Barry's gone, and then nothing after that. It was like no talk whatsoever. Like Barry's gone, Barry died, Barry was the Flash. None of that happened, and I'm like it's starting to just annoy me at this point. It's like they're just trying to make me mad about that because I feel like he should have figured it out by now because of all this stuff where Wally keeps showing up and everything, and then he actually, he actually hears it like, oh, Barry's gone. And he never brought it up. They never brought it up. She said it to him straight in his face. Like, Barry's gone. He's like, what? And she's like, he's gone. And then they kind of just get him up and that was it. And I'm like, that was weird that they even put that line in there because there was no reference to it whatsoever through the rest of the episode. Like, hey, this is what happened with Barry. They had the whole scene in the house and everything where it's like, when they figured out where Gerda was going and all that stuff. And it was like, this would kind of be the perfect moment where it's like, it's just the three of us, and the reason Iris said Barry was gone is because Barry was the Flash, didn't have his powers because he saved your life. Little explanation, real quick, just like that. So Barry's dead, and Barry was the Flash. Still nothing. So I'm pretty sure, unless they just throw it in there in the next episode, Wally still does not know Barry is the Flash, and it's the craziest thing. And I gotta assume at this point they're just doing that on purpose, where it's like, he should know from this line, or he should know because the Flash showed up at his house at random to beat a shark, and then Barry disappeared. It's like the very typical superhero thing. It's like, huh, you show up, and I know I've said this before because I was mad that Wally didn't figure it out. I think it was like 2 episodes ago I was mad he didn't figure it out. But it's like just the typical superhero thing, like, huh, every time the superhero shows up, you seem to disappear. And the most glaring moment is when the Flash shows up and you're upstairs missing for 15 minutes. So just a bunch of stuff. And this one, I was like, how could they not talk about that line? Like, they put it in there and then nothing afterwards. It was like, Barry's gone and Iris is clearly freaked out. It's like, she's super sad and stuff. So that made me real mad. Ending also made me mad. Not the very ending, because that was cool because they had all the villains and stuff like that. But the scene right before we finally, we see Caitlin again, and crazy Jay Garrick and the super villain conversation he was having with her, like, you can go with your friends, you can stay with me, and next time I see you, I'll, like, basically rip you apart like everybody else. So not a backhanded choice at all in any way, shape, or form. But the scene before that made me so freaking mad. Just like the last episode. I was like, okay, last episode we have, I don't know what the F is going on. Like, I think my excuse for Barry was like, he's going through a lot. I guess he just couldn't process it. I don't know. But they had their little talk. Iris admits that she has feelings for him. And basically was like, alright, that's cool. And nothing seemed to happen afterwards. And then we have this episode. They're at the graveyard. And, Barry's at his mom's tombstone and stuff. And he puts the flowers down. And he's like, Joe always wanted me to come here, but I always made up an excuse to kind of stay away because it just bothered me. And they talk about the book and stuff like that. And then that leads to this huge confession again. And it's like this big confession, and like there weren't officially tears, but like their eyes were watering up and stuff. And it's like, great. Kiss on the cheek. Like, what the F was that at the end? It made me so mad. I was like, why did they do that? Like, that was meant to be like the moment where they didn't have to make out, but like a full on kiss. And I was watching it with my girlfriend. We were both just like, a kiss on the cheek. That was it. Like, they already had like half of the conversation, and that was a big deal because obviously Iris admitting her feelings for Barry, which he oddly did not seem to reciprocate in the last episode. And then we have an even greater confession. Somehow it was even greater than the last episode, with tears almost and everything. The mother's gravesite and everything. And it's like, basically he was like, that ditto, great effing news. And he kissed her on the cheek and they hugged. And I was just like, that is just ridiculous. Like, there's no reason for me to be so mad about a super relationship in the show. But it's just like the way they play it is what annoys me. And it was just like, that was supposed to be the moment. Because we know they're going to end up together. That's kind of the big thing, is like, how long will it take? What will they admit and what won't they admit? And then it's like they finally have 2 big moments in a row, seemingly. The first one, obviously in the last episode, had 0 resolution. It was just like, that's news. And they both just walk away from each other. And then this was like a huge deal, and the gravesite and everything, and them talking about their mothers and stuff like that, where Iris says, like, I never liked that book because that's not, who my mother was. We don't have that mother that's just right for us. Like, that wasn't my mother, and it wasn't yours either. Totally different reasons, of course, but it was like, that wasn't my mother, and it wasn't yours either, unfortunately, because they were both just gone from our lives. But we do have someone that's just right for us, and that's each other. Like, you always have me if you need me and stuff. And it just ended in that stupid little peck on the cheek. And it's like, what is the point of this? What are they trying to do? So I don't know if they're going to have another conversation in the next episode, and they'll finally have a normal human response to that, like a crazy admittance to what is going on. So they might actually kiss. I have no idea, but that annoyed me. It was just like, what is happening? Like, two really big confessions in a row, both of which very insanely lackluster conclusions, where it's like nothing whatsoever. It was a lesser experience last time, so it was like, still weird. They just walked away, and then this was like the huge one. Like, I got you back. I thought you were gone, and just all sorts of crazy stuff. And they even had, like, in the middle of the episode when they thought they could get Barry back, and it was like he was there, but I couldn't get a hold of him, and everyone kind of broke down a second time because they thought it was actually going to work. So it was like they went through it twice, super fast, and then we still have it, and it's just like the most pitiful resolution. Like, oh, I love that news. I'm gonna kiss you on the cheek and we'll hug, and then that's it. So I don't know what they're doing with that one. That just really bugged me. It's just like the Wally thing. It's like some stuff they have it, and they just aren't using it, even though it's like they're somewhat using it because they have the confessions between Iris and Barry, and they don't have like the very logical ending to that where they would just kiss and be together. Because I don't think they are. I would assume that, little kiss on the cheek, they're still just friends. I was like, that's obviously a little more, coupled, especially with the last episode, that's a little more than like, I really love you as a brother and stuff. They're obviously way past that point now. And it's just weird when they have such great confessions and it ends in like a hug, a friend hug. So I really just can't guess where they're taking that. But I am looking forward to the next episode. We're going to have a lot of metahumans. I think the next episode is going to be pretty sweet compared to this one. But I'm looking forward to it. One thing that was very cool, and I mentioned this if you happen to watch my Arrow reviews, or even if not, if you watch Arrow, I hope I'm not spoiling this, but some stuff happened very recently. I'll just say it that way, just in case. But they have an Earth 2 counterpart of a character, and I was like, okay, that's pretty cool, and that could possibly resolve some issues. And I mentioned this stuff. There's certain comic elements that could be related to this version of the character, depending on how it works out, because this person's a villain currently, but that could change. I mean, most of the people working for Zoom were freaked out that he'd kill him anyway, so that could be why this person's chosen to actually be a part of the sort of Earth 1 invasion. But I don't know how they're going to play that. That may or may not happen. It certainly could, because they've chosen to give this person powers as an actual metahuman. So I don't know. That could work out in a very interesting way. I don't know if they're going to choose to do that, or what their plan is for this character. But I don't know. I'm very excited to see where they go with that. And in general, I'm excited for the action that is sure to take place. I don't know if we're going to really get Zoom versus Barry, because we still have 2 episodes left. So we have this week's episode, and then next week is going to be our finale. But he's going to be fighting somebody. They're going to be fighting a buttload of people in this next episode. I don't know if they're going to be doing like a mini crossover or bringing some people in or what, but I think there was like 2 dozen metahumans possibly at the end of this episode. So they're going to have their work cut out for them. They aren't just going to be like, let's attack one at a time. I hope they don't do that in the writing. I know that makes it simpler, but that also just makes it stupid. So I hope that's not how that happens. But I am looking forward to the next episode a lot. Of course, though, I want to know what you guys thought about this episode. So please comment below. Let me know your favorite parts, your least favorite parts. And, I kind of already asked what you guys thought about Wally and Jesse and how they were going to do their powers. But I still think it's kind of a big question as to how long that's going to take. So I still want to know, do you think that they will develop their powers maybe at the same time? Or who do you think will develop their abilities first? Based on what they did with this episode, because I think we all thought it was going to be Wally, like I said, but then they did the thing where it's like, oh, Jesse was unconscious. And it's like, oh, that's exactly what happened to Barry. And I thought they were going to go further with that because I didn't think she'd wake up. I thought when Henry was like, oh, do you have like the medical records from the morgue stuff, which never, I don't think that panned out in any way. I don't think they even went back to get the info they were looking for after Gerder bursted out. But I thought they were going to go there where I was like, we'll just keep her alive. We'll do everything that, old Eobard Thornwells did in order to, basically keep Barry alive. We'll do the exact same thing. And then, of course, Barry was like, give me my lightning. And so she, she got right up. But I definitely want to know who you think will develop their powers first. And really how you think that might change the show when they decide to do it. I would like to think they'll do it in the next season. And who knows what will happen. Maybe one of them will die. Whoever develops their powers will die. And then it'll be like, well, back to just Flash as a speedster. But I definitely want to know, based on how they did things and certain little hints and clues that they put in this episode, how you guys think they'll play around with Wally and Jesse, as far as them becoming speedsters. Will they both become speedsters? Will it only be Jesse? And maybe they'll do Wally like season 5 or something crazy, like way down the road. Maybe they'll switch it up on us, but I definitely want to know what you guys think about that. And of course, what you guys thought about this episode in general. So please comment below, let me know, and thanks for watching.